Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as usual by Tucker Hazel. One Xbox Game Pass addicted Tucker Hazel, I might add, as you'll see as we get into the meat of this episode, which is, of course, another episode of BLB Proper, the show where we come to you weekly to discuss the games that we've been playing. And in the process, we share the games you've been playing too, and you submit those titles to the Discord, which of course leads us directly into the plugs because Tucker, if anybody out there watching this god fucking video wants to talk to us about the games they've been playing or anything else at all, they can join the Discord link as usual. Top of the description, really down there. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that MF notification bell. All the cool kids are doing it. I've got the notifications on. My mom has notifications on her phone. Tucker, you have notifications on, which cuts against the notion that the cool kids have notifications on. But
see, the thing
if you want to feel cool,
when we were kids, cool kids were doing drugs and drinking alcohol, and they had programs in our schools teaching us not to do that. And in 50 years, who knows? There will probably be programs saying, hey, don't, if kids are subscribing to BLB, don't do it. And kids, our grandkids are going to be like, man, I'm not supposed to subscribe to BLB. This is scary.
There's going to be a DARE program, but for avoiding BLB instead of drugs.
Yes, exactly. That should be our next project. Actually, no, you'd be great if we worked on the award show.
What award show?
What? So hello, everyone. Welcome back to BLB. I have a lot of games to talk about today because this episode has been 2 weeks in the making. As he insinuated, the weekly is not true almost ever, which is fine. I don't really care. It just means we have longer episodes when they do happen. But I've got a lot of interesting stuff, exciting stuff to talk about today. I believe I have much more than Abram to talk about in terms of quantity of games. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say I've got somewhere in the ballpark of 5.
Oh, last night you told me 2.
I was lying to you.
Oh, okay. You told me to my face, no, I have 2, and you stared at me.
No, I only 5.
Okay. Well, I have around that as well. So
okay,
what perfectly balanced all things should be.
Well, I'll go first.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna swing to one that I'm not going to talk that much about because we've reviewed this game, talked about it on prior BLBs, and that is Halo Infinite. Because I made a pact with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Get through finals before you go back into Halo Infinite single player to clean up that map. And so I've since come home, hooked up my Xbox Series X, which is waiting for me, upgrade from the S to the X. And then I hop back into Zeta Halo. And in doing so, this game is just so far above everything else that came out for me this year. it's like Metroid Dread is here and Halo Infinite's like up at the top of the frame. Mm-hmm. It has just been so much fun just getting back into that gameplay loop. And as I've been clearing out more areas of the map, I've been getting that Valor up higher, and I just actually got the Wasp. And for people who aren't familiar, the Wasp is a UNSC flying vehicle. So now I can putter around Zeta Halo from the air, drop down onto targets. Not only is it more, efficient for travel, it also opens up a lot of cool combat opportunities of bomb the shit out of them, jump out, hijack. It makes the combat sequence even greater. And so not a whole hell of a lot to report on that front, but I've just been really digging it, and I've been digging into some of the storytelling opportunities in the open world, which are, as I said in the review, far more backgrounded than I hoped. But listening to the audio logs you find in the overworld, but also reading like the high value target bios before I take down a target, it's really fleshing out a lot of the open world from a storytelling perspective too. Of course, it's not the structure of quest giver, more tailored side mission that I'd like to see in
with like
Halo
scripted stories and stuff.
In Halo Infinite 2, Infiniter. But no, I'm having a great time. I'm getting a lot closer to map completion. Not there yet, but Halo Infinite's still very good, believe it or not.
Fun fact: I've been doing just about the same thing, not on the same level as you, but I found out that Halo Infinite, that open world, taking out targets and clearing things and getting little boxes ticked off your fucking thing, has been very good for just when friends are over and we're not really doing anything, but I can just be playing Halo and also having a conversation, because frankly, it doesn't require a ton of concentration. There's not really story stuff I'm paying attention to. So I played for about 2.5 hours the other night before I went to see Spider-Man. Just collecting Spartan cores and collecting the there's opportunities to customize your character. That's what I was trying to get. I don't know why that took me so long.
Oh yeah, the Mjolnir lockers.
Yes, exactly. And taking out camps and all sorts of stuff. So the one thing I definitely have noticed as I've engaged with more of it is that it is a lot of copy and paste repeat content in terms of mission structure and stuff, which I think I commented on in a review. But it is very obvious once you really start diving into that, which it's not a huge knock against the game. I get that's what I expected, though. I do, like you, wish that there was more unique content integrated in there. Something like the high value targets are cool in concept, but also those battles aren't particularly complex. The enemies aren't that unique. They might have a slightly different weapon, but if those are leaned into a little heavier in a sequel, I think that would be ideal, because that's one thing that feels a little bit lacking.
Sure.
But I don't give a piss about Halo Infinite. That's not true. Actually, I've been having a good time with it. I think it's a very good game. But I played a game in this past week on Xbox Game Pass. That's going to be a trend that you'll notice through every game that I've mentioned today. That is now my third favorite game of the year.
Oh, yes, I'm familiar with this.
This is The Forgotten City, which is a game that I didn't really hear people talk about too much. I think it got kind of swept under the radar, but it actually does have a very fervent fan base for a very particular reason, is that this game is actually a remake of a Skyrim mod that a guy made by himself years ago. And he has since made this version by himself with a little bit of a support team that is now available on Xbox Game Pass. It's available to buy elsewhere. And this game is just incredible how much quality one guy can put into a game.
Sure.
How much do you know about the game? I wanted to just be able to answer any questions or explain it that way.
I know that it's a time loop game. Mm-hmm. I know that a lot of people with blue check marks on Twitter won't shut up about it. Okay. And I know that it came from a Skyrim mod. That's literally all I know. Okay. I'm not familiar with the actual gameplay of it.
Sure. Yeah. So the base concept of this game, as you said, you're right. It is a time loop game, but that's not the thing that I found most interesting about the story or the conceit of this game, which the conceit is that you are someone who is, you wake up in a river and you have to go into a cave to save this guy who's trapped in there. But as you go in there, you are teleported back in time to an ancient Roman city with only about 23 people in it. And the conceit of this city, which is underground, no one can get out, is that if one person commits a crime, everyone dies. So the idea is that you're trying to find out who will commit a crime, because if they commit that crime, everyone will die and the loop will restart.
That's cool.
So through your progression of the game, you interview each character, you get to know who they are, their motivations, what their path for the day is, what their relationships are with everyone else, and try to piece together what the truth is behind all of this, and find out what's really going on behind all of this. Because there's quite a few plot twists. There's quite a few layers that actually go even deeper. There's a huge history and lore here to what this place actually is, and no spoilers. What it is from a meta perspective, what the ending reframes everything as. It's a really detailed game in terms of its world building, and that is supported by phenomenally written characters. There's, I said, 20 something characters in this game, and they are all fully voice acted. They all have entire scripts of where they go throughout the day and who they know and where they came from and all this stuff. There's so much rich detail in this world, and it's also rendered beautifully. I mean, this is accurate ancient Roman architecture that is Unreal Engine built up from the ground up, and everything is interconnected, and you've got this grappling hook thing you can slide down wires for extra speed, and I just found this game to be so engrossing that I just stayed up until 3 a.m. just to finish. I had to finish it. I'm like, I know I'm close, but then just hours and hours and hours later, I finally beat it. The gameplay of the game is not particularly complex. It is mostly just going around and piecing together things, interviewing people. There are small side quests you can do for people. There are a lot of extra additional content if you do want to explore, but there is very simple combat. You get a bow with golden arrows that is not great. It's pretty bad combat, but that's not the focus of the game. And I think this game, I give it a 9 out of 10 on Backlogged. It is a 9 out of 10 on everything that it does. The thing that I think holds it back from reaching its true potential is that the facial animation is very poor. These characters are very well acted and they're very interesting writing wise, but the facial animation is super stiff. And it's like, oh damn, you're so close. But I mean, of a team of 3 people, I don't it's
Sure,
impossible to expect Naughty Dog quality out of this. So if this guy ends up making another game in a similar vein, if he can get motion capture on this, it's a fucking done deal. I really do think this is one of the games of this year in terms of its creativity and the influence that I think it will have, and it has had, because as a Skyrim mod, that this game has been hugely influential. But easily one of my games of the year. I definitely recommend it. It is on Game Pass. It's only 5-6 hours long. Okay. And good God, I love this game so much.
That's very cool. Tucker, I regret to inform you that I no longer have any more space on the games I need to finish quickly before the year ends list.
I'm aware, yes.
No, but I might totally put this on the beginning of the list for next year, because I was very compelled by how much people talked about it. But they're all part of the goddamn verified elite.
And me?
And you. And that's the thing. One of us, the common folk, Tucker Hazel, says that he really likes the game. So I will add it to the list.
Peter, how will you feel if eventually in the course of your life you become verified on Twitter?
Well, then I'll start shitting on people like you instead.
It's a great point.
Let's talk about a game in a very similar vein, actually, and that is Endless Ocean.
Well, I thought this guy, we know him.
I can't reveal why I'm playing Endless Ocean, but I can reveal that I finished it. And this game, Tucker, is very interesting because it is the most on-the-nose example of blue ocean game design. Yes. Yeah. It's a very casual experience to the point of a near aggression, in the sense that you'll be given an objective and then the game will very emphatically tell you that you do not have to do it.
Oh yeah, actually I do remember that. I don't know did we ever talk about this on BLB?
No, we never did.
So when Abram was in town, he forever, whatever fucking reason, the only game that he brought with him that wasn't like on a Switch was Endless Ocean for Wii.
I actually mailed it to your house.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, making it even weirder.
That is strange. But so we played that game for 2 hour and a half. I don't know. It wasn't that long. But we never really got past the tutorial areas, I guess. Mostly because the gameplay is very slow. So even if we wanted to get farther, it was, and I do remember you just unlocked an ancient memory in my mind of they'd be like, well, you don't have to engage with this if you don't want to. No, it's totally optional. Don't worry. Go relax, go have fun.
Yeah, and that philosophy persists across the entire game. Like there's a subset of missions where there's this recurrent client you have, and he wants you to take him diving, and he wants you to find a particular. He's like, I want to go diving in this area to see this fish. Mm-hmm. If you just kind of paddle around long enough and you don't see the fish, he just says, "Oh, I'm satisfied. We can leave whenever you want."
Oh, that's good enough.
Yeah,
I got to see the ocean.
Yeah, so the game is very much intentionally designed to leave no player behind. You would have to be a real fucking fool to get lost in Endless Ocean, because the game wants everybody to enjoy it to some degree or another. There actually are quite a number of activities here, quite a lot to experience, whether it's just sort of exploring the entire map, finding all the fish, or training dolphins, filling out an aquarium, taking on these side missions.
I remember us trying to train the dolphin and we could not figure out what we were doing.
No. But there actually is a lot here.
Sure.
Now, the thing about it is, I think from a design perspective, the game is very successful for that casual player.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think it is a very interesting and worthwhile game, especially because you can beat it in about 5 hours, as I did. But for somebody who wants a little bit more interactivity out of their games, a little bit more gumption in their game design, for me, it was the sort of thing where
Gumption is a great band name.
Yes. We'll start a band called Gumption. I was able to appreciate from the outside looking in how this game is sort of created for a player who isn't me.
Sure.
And because of that, I think it's uniquely interesting and a very fascinating addition to Nintendo's catalog, and one that had some genuinely great moments. I think it has a beautiful, especially for Wii era, beautiful undersea environment to explore. And they do a lot of great things with scale. And it's very relaxing, actually, just swimming to the sounds of just your like your oxygen tank, just a
sure.
as you see like sea turtles swim past you and you're taking pictures of them, and there's a school of fish in the coral. I think it's quite a uniquely compelling experience. But had it been longer, I think it would have worn thin for me, because I need a little bit more on that bone to keep me going. But because it's so uniquely designed, because it's such an atypical experience, it's actually, I think, one of the more interesting games I've played this year.
Yeah, it is one of those interesting games that is not talked about. And I guess I would say for good reason, because that casual market of Wii and DS era Nintendo is something that doesn't appeal to a lot of people anymore. It was popular at the time, but even that kind of casual gaming is essentially gone and in terms of mainstream appeal. And also in our circles, that kind of stuff is not appealing to almost anyone. But I think it's interesting to see a franchise like that, because it does have a sequel, I believe, on Wii as well, right?
Yeah, and it is kind of the second game in a way, because it's actually a sequel to a game called Grand Blue on PS2, which Eureka made previously. But it's really more of like a spiritual successor in a lot of senses, but a much better fit for the platform also. We opposed to PS2.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Here's my question.
Yes.
Comparing Endless Ocean, which is obviously very casual. It's for the Wii. It's slow. It's got that no, don't worry, don't fucking do anything vibe. How would you compare that to something like Abzu, which I believe you've played?
Yeah, I love Abzu. They're very different experiences. I mean, because Abzu is linear and narrative driven.
Yes.
Now there actually is, well, in the sense that you're progressing. It's more of like the narrative is more of a feeling, but it's a feeling you're pursuing across the course of the game. But there actually is a narrative to Endless Ocean. It's one of the things that surprised me the most. It's actually quite basically you're on the boat, the Gabbiano. It's Italian.
Is that how they
and
say
you got believe it or not, there's no voice acting, so I'm implying here.
Oh, I totally thought there was. There is though. A voice acting song. There's a vocal song over the fucking menu.
Yes, actually a number of them as you get deeper in the game. But there's this woman on your boat named Catherine Sunday, and
great name.
And you begin to unravel her past and her relationship to the water, and her father's relationship to the area, and her work, her life's purpose in marine biology. So there is actually quite an interesting narrative to explore, but it's backgrounded to the idea of just go dive and enjoy and be cerebral and take pictures and fill it in an aquarium, right? Abzu is a lot more narrow in its focus. We're going to get from point A to point B. This is for all intensive purposes that it is journey underwater. And this very much is not that.
No, that structurally I can definitely see that difference. I love Abzu, and I guess I was intrigued by what we played of Endless Ocean. I do think that maybe getting past the tutorial-ish segments and sort of being able to do what I wanted to might increase my enjoyment. I would like to play the game eventually. I mean, it's, believe it or not very high priority to play fucking Endless Ocean. But I like fishies, and filling out a fish tank and just exploring might be kind of fun. I don't really have anything else to say about Endless Ocean. Your unnamed possible future reason that you played this will be a thing eventually.
It'll be clarified soon enough.
It's my new thing. I do a little finger wag. It's my classic bit. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows it.
Everyone knows it. You've been doing it for years.
All right. So chronologically, next up on what I've been playing is actually something that you played as well. So this is about to be our review, I guess, if we want to call it that, of the Gunk. Because I beat the Forgotten City in one night and one sitting, and then I did the same thing the next morning with the Gunk, because the Gunk released on December.
Yes, you're correct.
Something last week. I don't really remember when it came
early
out.
December on Game Pass.
But
those are the deets.
The morning that it released, I I scurried down these stairs. I put it on my Xbox, downloaded the Gunk. Actually, I'd already had it pre-installed, and played through the entire thing in a sitting. I am very big Image & Form fan because SteamWorld Dig 1 and 2 are both top tier games in my opinion, especially 2. I think is near perfect. And the Gunk is very interesting to me because I enjoyed it a lot in as I was playing it. My thoughts on it have declined a little bit as time has gone on because I've realized that there isn't a lot about it that sticks out in my memory. It's only been a week since I've played it, but I'm already starting to feel a little bit of more malaise towards the experience. But there's a lot of stuff to praise about this game, and I do feel like it's gotten, believe it or not, washed under the table in the week that it's come out. But I'm very happy Image & Form is given a new opportunity to try something different in terms of visual and gameplay style. It's their first 3D game. It's also their first not SteamWorld game, which is nice.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm actually writing about this right now. I want more games like the Gunk. I want more games where teams experiment with something totally beyond their niche, beyond what they're known for, in the context of a bite-sized, easily digestible experiment, effectively. The game's 4 hours long.
Yes.
I think that this is a sort of creativity I want to see more of, because I think that the Gunk has been getting a bad rap. I think the game is actually quite good.
I agree.
I think it's got some pretty clear issues, as we'll talk about, but it's a really interesting fusion of inspirations, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of No Man's Sky and sort of the ambiance of the world, and in the sort of scientific focus of the scanning and the elements and everything. I think there's a little bit of Ratchet and Clank and sort of the feel of Ronnie, and the idea of platforming being secondary to an action or a puzzle element. I think there's obviously some Luigi's Mansion. I don't just mean in the goo sucking, but I mean in the sense of like the ways you're using your arm, she calls it pumpkin, to pick up things and interact and solve puzzles in that respect. That's very much Luigi's Mansion 3, especially. I just think this fusion is quite interesting, and it's underneath what I think is a pretty compelling narrative that loses its way in by the end. Because the heart of it's really about these two characters, Ronnie and Bex.
100%.
And when they become back,
and Kurt, don't fucking forget about Kurt. Goddamn.
Wouldn't dare do it. But I just think that it's a bite-sized experience. It's a very interesting adventure. You have played the disparate elements of the Gunk before, but I think that
you ain't never played the Gunk.
Yeah, the way they come together, I think, is quite novel and quite compelling.
Yeah, I think that a lot of my enjoyment of this game came from excitement of Image & Form doing something entirely different. I think you're right. There's an intrigue there of this team that we're big fans of doing something that is nowhere near what they've done before. And I think what got me drawn into it immediately is the wonderful art design. I think this game is really beautiful. Considering it's their first 3D game, it's their first game with realistic lighting and all this kind of stuff. They did an amazing job. Oh my God, they did an amazing job. And that combined with the pretty simplistic, but I think really endearing characters of Ronnie and Bex, the way that you reveal their relationship throughout the course of the game, and they end up having some conflicts that brings them together stronger by the end. It's all very simple, but I think intentionally so to let you just focus on the experience of exploring an alien world and taking in these environments and completing some admittedly simplistic puzzles, but everything there I think is focused enough and doesn't overstay its welcoming enough that I totally recommend this game. 4 hours, 8 chapters, a bite-sized story, some great voice acting, some fun worlds to explore. I think I agree. I think this game has gotten a bad rap, and I feel like it's one that will sort of get a retrospective boost in quality once Image & Form has done other games of this ilk. This is their first of this kind. Maybe people aren't really excited about it or expecting much from it. But once they've reached their borders out farther, people will look back and be like, oh wait, that's really where this started. And it was actually a pretty good game. So that's kind of my future projecting of what this game's going to be seen like.
I certainly hope so, but I also think it's certainly symptomatic of the fact that Image and Form has never worked in 3D before.
Yeah.
I think that like collision detection is not especially good. No. It's very unclear whether you're going to fall through something in the environment, like if a plant in the environment is something that has like collision physics or doesn't. There's a lot of times where you feel like you can jump on a rock, but then you do that thing where you're like on the side of geometry that you're not supposed to be on, so you're like kind of floating in stasis and you'll slide. Like it is rather unpolished in that respect, which is just I think sort of the inexperience that the team has. At the same time, as you're saying, I think that the mission structure is a little bit too simple. I think it ramps up very nicely. By the end of the game, I think we're getting to a really great place, difficulty-wise, combining combat into puzzles and all that. I thought that was quite strong. But I think that the central mechanic of the gunk is consistently boring.
And of the actual gunk sucking it up. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Basically, the core conceit is that there's this gunk in the world, and it's got a narrative function as you learn about. No sense in spoiling it because the game's fucking an afternoon long, so you should just go play it yourself. We both recommend it strongly, but you have to basically use your arm to vacuum suck up all of this gunk, and it never gets more complex than that. You're gonna have to juggle more things to stay alive as you're sucking up the gunk, but it becomes very repetitive of clear the gunk from the area. When the gunk is removed, life springs back, and it's quite beautiful. But it's okay. Hold down right trigger, slowly walk around, and you start to get upgrades that make the gunk sucking a little bit more efficient, but they come late in the game. So I just don't understand why so much of the gameplay, I get having the thematic identity tied to the gunk, but having the gameplay identity tied to it, I just think was a huge misstep if it wasn't going to be evolved the way that I think the combat and the puzzle solving is.
100%. I definitely agree. I think the act of sucking up the gunk and the sort of monkey brain satisfaction of cleaning shit up, a la Super Mario Sunshine or something like that, is something that appeals to me quite a lot. And so I never had a problem with the mechanic as itself. I always thought it was kind of nice that that part is very polished in terms of if you point your suction thing at the gunk, it gets sucked in very realistically, and like there's no jarring physics for any of that. But I do agree that by the end of the game, when it has not evolved at all, and there's not even like 2 or 3 types of gunk that you have to approach slightly differently, or you don't get a secondary version of your glove that can take down the simple gunk very easily, but it's got this fucking super gunk is more difficult for this one to do. That kind of thing, I feel like would have been pretty easy to implement, honestly. If there was a change sort of halfway through the game that did make that more complex, that would have done fucking wonders. It really would have. But I also do think that from an evolution perspective, the fact that it didn't overstay its welcome and was only 4 hours, it's not a huge problem.
Yeah.
Though when you're thinking about the game in terms of its pacing and, okay, this is the beginning of the game, the middle of the game, the end of the game, there's not too much mechanical difference. Even with the puzzles, even with the combat gets 3 enemy types. That's the evolution of the combat. But yeah, I think the game is very good, or I would say it's good. I recommend it for its length and for supporting Image and Form and supporting Game Pass and all of that. But the more I think about it, the more I can see where people are coming from of it not being particularly unique. But I think there are elements of it that sort of make that not matter too much to me. And I'm very glad I played it regardless.
Yeah, no, I agree. I give it a quite strong recommendation. I think the game is very good. Being on Game Pass helps a lot, but I do just think that this fusion of clear inspirations is unique, in my opinion. I think the issues are more the ways that Image and Form just needs a little bit more time fleshing out how you interact with a 3D space, opposed to the space they created. So very excited for SteamWorld shoot 'em up game, which is the next one they're making. SteamWorld Showdown. Something like that. I don't remember.
Oh, I actually have not heard about that.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about it later. New SteamWorld game, but it's like a third-person shooter or something to that effect. Do I go next?
If you so insist.
Let's talk about Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon.
Oh, I need to play this.
Yeah, download it off my account. It's quite cool. I think that this game is no less than great. Shovel Knight Pocket
nice.
Dungeon is an incredibly polished and interesting puzzle game, but it is also way more of a roguelite than I expected. And for me, that became a turnoff.
Okay, interesting.
So essentially the conceit is you're in these puzzle box stages. You have to escape the puzzle dimension. And to do that, you clear these levels. And to do so, you're in these grids and you have to line up enemies and bump into them to basically KO them. You take damage when they take damage, so you have to be very deliberate about how you're moving, how you're chaining enemies, how you're maintaining your health. It's quite inventive. It's actually a really great fusion of action puzzle elements. I think that's all fantastic.
Much like Wario's Woods.
For me, the problem comes into the fact that it is also quite heavily a roguelite. So as you're clearing out these combos, you get gems, which you can spend within the stages in these little like shop areas to get relics, which buff your attack, give you more health, change your playstyle in some instances, make it so you take less damage from elemental typing and all
LSD.
kinds of stuff. Yes, there's actually a lot of LSD in the games all over the place. But no, because of that though, a run towards the end, because you can see the end of the game, and my winning run was 30 minutes long. Seeing the end of the game to me felt so contingent on getting the right relics. And because of that
was your problem with Hades as well, maybe, or someone else.
That was someone else. My problem, I've got different problems with Hades. But I just felt like neither my successes nor my victories were quite my own. And because of that, it kind of undercut a level of that skill that I like. Yacht Club is so good at generating skill-based challenges. That's why Shovel Knight's so good. But this doesn't quite hit that for me. Now, this game is perhaps more customizable than any game I've ever played in my entire life before. You can turn off the roguelike elements. You can give yourself more health. You can turn off the real-time elements if you want it. You can make it so that you have double the amount of health, enemies only move when you move, and you don't do any of the roguelike stuff. You can
Did you experiment with any of that?
I did, and I'll get to that in a second. You can turn off the bosses. You can change the game speed. You can change your attack damage. Everything here is customizable. And I think it compromises the experience.
Okay.
This is... the Gospel of the Lord, Video Game Donkey, said something very interesting in his video on video game difficulty.
Yes,
wherein he says, when a game gives me multiple difficulty options, I don't know what the right option is.
Sure.
And I think that applies to this game very clearly.
Yeah.
When you give me all these options, it's a great thing for accessibility, but it's also undercutting your design intent. Because when I turned off these systems, the game became more what I wanted it to be, a skill-based puzzle game. But then it started to lose, I think, some of its frantic charm. Because there is a fun to the RNG of the relics, of trying to hold on to get enough gems for the next one, and crossing your fingers the one you want is in the shop, and the enemies are falling faster and faster, and you're trying to keep up. Like, the game is designed to set that intersection of deliberate planning and strategy and action elements and roguelite elements and puzzle elements. It's at that convergence of the games that it's most interesting. And so when I started to fiddle with shit, it didn't feel right to me. Sure, it's close to what I want, but it felt completely compromised in other respects. So because of that, I think my thing about this game is it's very much just a buyer beware of, if roguelite elements to you feel like a turnoff at times, then you might want to wait for a sale or something here. But if not, I think this game is phenomenal. So it's kind of just a disconnect between how good the game is and where I think it is for my subjective taste. I do think they could have rebalanced the power of these relics so they felt more additive, opposed to like they were driving my runs. But on the whole, that is part of the fun at the end of the day. Between the customizability, the replayability, the invention of those core mechanics, I think this is another hit from Yacht Club. So
there is an end to the game, or you can end a run and that's the end of the game. Is this a roguelike game?
Basically there's a ton of characters, and there's like 50 feats, which are basically achievements to complete. And when you beat the game with the character, you unlock their alternate costume, and then you get plopped back into the game to do it again with the other characters. So there is a shit ton of replayability here. But
so a completion of the game is beating a run with one character, or as many as you want, but like...
And that was kind of, because I reviewed the game, and kind of my crux of the review was, I beat the game, I didn't really feel like my victory was solely my own, and because of that, I'm not going to go for more victories.
Yeah.
I recognize how good the game is, but there's a disconnect for me here.
No, yeah. I was never anticipating it personally. I think it's interesting to apply such a now iconic IP to as Shovel Knight to something obviously not like Shovel Knight in the fucking slightest. But I think it's fun to recontextualize the characters and the level elements and stuff in a puzzle game. I mean, I am a puzzle game fan. And I've grown more so over the course of this year, especially. So I am going to try the game, and I like the idea that you can complete it and have an often of experience with just that small amount. And it's not like some roguelikes where if it's fucking Spelunky or Binding of Isaac, where you got to sink 60 hours in it to like see the end because you got to collect all the shit over the course of time. But I think that's actually really interesting, and I'll come back with my impressions probably in the next week or two. Okay, God. All right. Fucking BLB, you know what I'm saying? Let's move over to something that is going to be very interesting because I'm sure I'm one of the only people talking about this game in the year of our Lord 2021, which is Super Lucky's Tale. And the reason I add that stipulation that I'm probably one of the only people to talk about this game is because A, this game is not particularly special as we'll get into, but B, this game that I played has been obliterated by the passage of time because they released new Super Lucky's Tale on multiple systems, which is just a categorically improved version of Super Lucky's Tale in like every facet. It's I don't know all the specifics of what has changed, but it's got better visuals. It's got similar but improved level design. It's got a very similar but improved story. Like they just made the game different and better. But also, Super Lucky's Tale is still available on Game Pass. And I was curious to see, as sort of the premier Xbox 3D platformer, what the fuck this game was about. And also, it was like 5 hours long. So I'm like, sure, fine. Give it a download. I'm trying to get into Xbox history. So I played Super Lucky's Tale.
That's it. That's basically the end of the segment.
Yeah, I played Super Lucky's Tale. That's really all I can say, because if you have played a 3D platformer before, you've played Super Lucky's Tale. There's like half an idea here that this game hangs its hat on, which is Lucky's only ability, which is digging, which is a reasonably solid mechanic of you rocketing down into the ground, moving around very quickly underground, faster than your normal movement speed, and popping up with a little extra jump to get places. What that means is you can dig underneath enemies, you can chain the digs to get to extra places, and all that is actually pretty quality. However, that's not the core mechanic of this game. That is the only interesting idea this game has, but it doesn't lean into that, which I think is very unfortunate. If a lot of the levels had been based around you using this digging to hide under enemies and to get around in certain ways, and it in itself had been fleshed out some more, this could be an interesting spin on a 3D platformer with its own idea. But the rest of this game, I would say 90% of this game does not involve the digging at all. And it is just slow, easy 3D platforming in pretty uninspired levels with decent, like satisfactory, but not very engaging visuals, with serviceable, but not particularly engaging characters or concepts or visual design. I think this game is good. It's there's nothing really wrong with it particularly, but it's just so uninteresting if you have experienced 3D platformers, which are a prolific genre, believe it or not. It's in a weird intersection.
I think so. As I've been alerted by you, I allegedly gave this game a 55 out of 100 when I reviewed it several years ago. I don't remember anything about it, frankly. I think Super Lucky's Tale, because I remember beating it and enjoying it and moving on. I think it's a good introductory game for kids to get into the genre, but it's very toothless. It is an amalgamation of ideas you've seen elsewhere. I think what it really was kind of a bid for a mascot. beyond the quality of the game.
Yeah.
Of we now have Lucky.
Yeah.
And I think Lucky's a pretty cool character. He's
Though
designed...
he is the only character in the game that doesn't talk. Yes. He has no personality of his own, which I think is a problem.
He's designed with the like the fucking Bubsy and Croc school of like 90s character design, right? And I think there's something charming about that. And I think there's something charming about the game, but in a very surface level sense.
Yeah.
I think a sequel to Super Lucky's Tale, a proper one, not the fucking weird new Super Lucky's Tale, whatever it is, like a proper, like more open Lucky's game could be cool, but that's never gonna happen because who cares?
I don't know. Playful Games did this game fucking 3 times or whatever, so
it's also it's like in VR too and all kinds of stuff. Like
so what I believe through what little research I've done, I don't really give a piss about this game, so I didn't dig into it too much, pun intended. Is that it was initially a VR game, and they made it a not VR game.
You're right. That's
Super Lucky's Tale is a not VR game of Lucky's Tale, which is a VR game. So I don't know what they changed from the VR game. I never heard of the VR game.
They changed it so it's no longer played in VR.
Yeah. But I don't know if the level design is any different. I don't know. Anything about the VR game.
Who knows?
But the fact that they did it 3 times means that I think that this team has a passion for these characters and this kind of gameplay and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if just for some extra variety, Xbox puts them on to make a new, more impressive, more creative Lucky's game. And honestly, as a Lucky's Tale fan, I'll play it. I'd be interested to see where the team could go from here. I'd say I'm interested to play new Super Lucky's Tale because that's part of the direction, but that's just not true because it is, I think, ostensibly the same game. But yeah, this game is interesting, but because it's not interesting. I don't play a lot of not interesting games like this. Games that I play are usually iconic, they're usually important, they're usually heavily talked about, or they have something very unique to them. I don't really experience games like this that just don't really have anything going for them. One thing I was going to say is, I think it's interesting you say it's a good introductory 3D platformer, but so are all the 3D Mario games. I think that's the problem. It's like, this is Xbox's 3D platformer, but you can play other 3D platformers on Xbox. And if you want 3D platformers, just get a fucking Nintendo system. Play Odyssey. Like,
play Banjo-Kazooie. Exactly.
But what were you saying?
I think I was gonna say that it's like an archetypal, like AA game.
Sure.
It sort of exists in that space below, but also I just don't care to talk about Lucky's Tale anymore.
Well, again, I think we're the longest discussion that Lucky's Tale has been, Super Lucky's Tale has been discussed in the past probably 2 years.
I got one last game to talk about.
Okay.
Very interesting title.
Okay, I have 2.
All right. I played Vanquish.
Oh, that's right.
I didn't finish Vanquish. It's very short, but I still didn't finish it because I didn't really care that much. And I want to get into why. This game is quite interesting. It's a Shinji Mikami game. You'll know Mr. Mikami from his work on Resident Evil, most notably. And it's a Platinum Games title. And Vanquish effectively is a third-person character action game, and a lot of the tropes of the character action genre you can apply it to, especially the Platinum character action game, you can apply it to Vanquish. And it has what is a pretty compelling, like, bullet time mechanic. Now, bullet time is quite familiar, but this is bullet time on crack, because it's fast bullet time, which seems antithetical, but what I mean is that bullet time in this game is triggered by parkour actions. Okay. So you've got like these jet thrusters on your fucking exosuit where you can literally slide for like a mile. And as you slide,
are the levels open enough for that to be a thing?
No.
Oh.
I'll talk about my issues with Vanquish in a second, but you can slide, and if you start firing, you go into bullet time. If you jump over cover, and you can go into bullet time in midair. Mm-hmm. So the game prioritizes movement in a way that not a lot of cover-based shooters do, which I think is compelling. And what is also interesting is that this is, of course, a Japanese game, but borrows a lot of the sort of tropes of the like mid-2000s shooter from like Gears of War and American
Okay.
Western games.
When
So
did
it's
it come out?
basically 2009.
Okay.
It was before 2010 is what I'll tell you.
You
It was
played this
early.
on
I put it on
Xbox?
PS5.
Oh, okay.
It was originally I think PS3 and 360.
But there's just a port of it.
It was remastered for PS4.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Because this game has a cult following, and that's the reason I played it. People like Colin Moriarty, Greg Miller talk up Vanquish quite often, and so it was on sale. I got it for $9.99. I figured that seemed like a reasonable price, and I played it, but I just find it to be very flat. I find the game very, very flat. Bullet time is now ubiquitous. It's no longer very new anymore. Max Payne brings it onto the scene, and then it gets iterated on. And when I play a game like Severed Steel this year, which really it's very deliberate in its utilization of crafting levels and gameplay mechanics around bullet time, going to something like Vanquish feels just a little bit flat because you can just play it as a cover-based shooter if you want, and it's not very compelling to do so, but you could. The game has a lot of.
You just don't activate the bullet time mechanic.
Yeah, you can just go from cover point, and fight, and you can do that if you want to. Like it feels like the bullet time is additive, and you can kind of play it as a score chaser in that sense because it's very score based. But I didn't really find a compulsion to do so, especially because I think that the world is pretty off-putting. Like I said, it's like the Japanese version of the American mid-2000s war tropes.
Yeah.
Which makes it kind of unique, but also it's like the main protagonist is fucking puffing his cigarette and yelling one-liners, and your big muscly Gears of War
What's
archetype.
his name? What's the character's name?
I forget. You can look him up. They're very much like they're very much Ethan Winters type names, if you know what I mean.
No. Well, okay. Nothing about Ethan Winters is probably my least favorite video game protagonist I've ever had displeasure of playing as. So that's not a compliment.
But it's the Japanese action stereotypes of America. So they're like fucking swearing and talking about sex, and they're making jokes about eBay, and you're fighting these red robots. So he's like calling them Roombas, and it's very of its time. It's very like kick ass and chew bubblegum. Like what Duke Nukem Duke Nukem was always ironic, and then he became unironic with Marcus Phoenix. And then this game is like, that's what we want to do, but we want to do it from an outsider's perspective. And so it's interesting, but the game is very bland because of it.
Sure.
Like the plot of the game is that there is a Russian and he has a big red laser and he shoots at states.
Oh,
and then
I see.
You have
okay.
to go.
So yeah, it's intended to be an over-the-top action story, B-movie sort of deal. But it's generic because of that.
Yeah, it's a B movie, but not like Resident Evil 4 is a B movie, but it's a memorable B movie.
Sure.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I would love a Resident Evil 4 remake, and I know it's probably coming. But I'm excited.
Confirmed to be coming.
Well, I'm excited for that because I enjoyed Resident Evil 4. We get reviewed it. It's an 8 out of 10. But since then I've forgotten like every element of that game except for I don't know. There was a short guy and he had a robot, and there was a jet. I hated that jet ski portion at the end. And Leon S. Kennedy is more annoying in 4 than he is in 2. Those are the things I remember about the game. I like the village at the beginning, and then there's a castle.
The point is, I don't find Vanquish especially compelling.
Sure.
I think it's a neat idea that it rings hollow when there's much more interesting bullet time games nowadays.
So, like Severed Steel, or is that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Or super hot.
Super hot. Yes, super actually. Hot. But like because in those instances the combat is tailored around these bullet time ideas.
Yeah,
this combat is not. And your character is also literally stapled to the ground. You cannot jump. You can. The only time you get into the air is when you're flipping over cover.
Yeah, okay.
And it just feels restrictive. And your game shouldn't feel restrictive like this. And the level design is completely uneven.
I can't remember the last FPS I played without a jump button. I don't know, Doom 1993 maybe.
Star Wars Dark Forces.
Great point.
But Star Wars Dark Forces is just a Doom clone with Star Wars. So
what's not a Doom clone these days?
That actually might have a jump button. It's just very weird. I think I understand. I totally understand why Vanquish is a cult classic, but I also understand why it's a cult classic and not just a classic.
Yes, sure. All right, that's enough about that Vanquish horse shit. Let's hop to something that's a little less horseshit, but could be horseshit to you. I don't know. Unpacking is a game that has a sort of cult following from this year. It is an indie game made by a pretty small studio that is entirely focused around the idea that unpacking your stuff when moving into a new house is kind of puzzle like. You got to make sure that you take it out, you have enough space on the shelves for it. The order in which you place things down is kind of important. And so they took that idea and made a very short, very simple, but incredibly charming and intentionally relaxing game out of it. This is a game that kind of like Endless Ocean. I don't think they were inspired by Endless Ocean, but kind of like Endless Ocean takes a lot of the emphasis off of you have to do anything a certain way. It ends up more so being about how you feel is right about designing your room and placing elements next to one another and stuff like that. There are some restrictions of you can't place a fucking fork on the bed. Like you got to put things in their sort of general areas.
Sure.
But what this game does is create just small but very intricate sandboxes for you to take things out of a box and put them on shelves. And it's only 3 hours long or something like that. And what this game ends up doing in that time is something that I didn't necessarily realize in the moment, but after listening to some interviews with the developers and listening to other people talk about this game, is tell a surprisingly simple but heartfelt story solely through gameplay. There's no dialogue in this game. There's no characters. There's no characters with names. Like, so what this game is the story of a woman's life shown through a series of photographs of her unpacking as she moves into different places. It's her childhood home. It's her first dorm room. It's her first room with like a boyfriend. It's her first own house. It's her house with her spouse and her child, that kind of stuff. And what the game does, and there's one moment that people really harp on, which, you know, I think maybe because I've only heard it as people just love this. I'm not as enamored with it. But is that when, she goes to college, she graduates, she has a big degree in a frame. And when you move into your boyfriend's house for the first time, there is nowhere in the level that you can place down the plaque of her graduation. Like, her
interesting.
So, because that level is based around the fact of you fitting your stuff in with someone else's stuff. And there's nowhere in the level you can place this except for under the bed. So like there's a little bit of a gameplay element of storytelling there
that's compelling. That's really compelling.
That you have to hide your accomplishment, because
that's awesome.
And it's a small moment and something that I honestly didn't notice in the moment, because I just was like, I took it out of the box, I'm like, where does this fit? Oh, it's a green line here, or like green outline. I can put it under the bed. Great. All right, move on to the next thing. But in retrospect, okay, there's some interesting stuff there. And another element of storytelling is very simple, but which things throughout her life she chooses to take with her through her moves. So childhood toys, some of them stay, some of them go. Pictures of some friends stay and go. And like, if you're paying attention, you'll notice some things recurring. You're like, okay, these things must be very important to her. And you can learn about this character who doesn't like exist in a tangible way through the objects that relate to her hobbies, that relate to certain events in her life. What are her interests? Who are her friends? Stuff like that. That you can learn simply through unpacking the things that she keeps in boxes. And I really found that to be quite compelling now that I've sort of thought about it a little more. And the fact that the game is only 3 hours long, and it is very like tightly designed in everything has its own sprite and its own like sound effects and own place in the world and all that. It's a very, very simple game, but there's a lot of care put into it, and you can really tell.
I think for me, unpacking is just like we're just ships in the night. I'm not sure if it's something like that compels me, but I'd certainly give it a wave as we pass, because I find games that,
as opposed to other games, you turn away from.
Yes, I avert my eyes.
Hey.
Control walks past. But
continue.
but I love when games use mechanics to tell stories. And I think that that's something we just don't get enough of in an industry that is motivated by interactivity. So much of our storytelling is done through a narrative means it's accomplished in other forms of entertainment.
Yeah.
And so like what you told me about the having to put your degree under the bed, just contextually, that's an amazing piece of storytelling.
Yeah.
Amazing piece of storytelling.
Unfortunately, there aren't a ton of those moments,
Yeah,
or at least
yeah.
not that I was able to pick up from or that I've heard of in discussion about this game. As I said, that's the one. That's the moment that people are like, whoa, this has a fucking story. They're like, I bawled my fucking eyes out when that happened. I was so mad. I turned off my Xbox. Like, calm the fuck down. All right. We get it. You're a fucking gameplay story lunatic, but yeah, I think that moment is very cool, but it has been overhyped.
Sure.
But I recommend Unpacking. It's on Game Pass. Believe it or not, considering what I've been playing the last 2 weeks.
Game
Pass. But you know, I actually, I've got two more that are kind of intertwined. Should I just go to those, or do you have something else?
I haven't another game to talk about.
Okay, so let's talk about 2 twos, because I played Peggle 2 and Bejeweled 2 on Xbox Game Pass.
Right, of course.
Where should I start? Help me guide my conversation of these 2 fucking games.
I genuinely have no idea. I have no idea.
At least choose one to have me start with.
Sure. Well, no, I don't know. I want you to begin with why.
Why?
That's the only question I find interesting here.
That's philosophical as fuck. Let's see if I can answer why first, because I think I'll just have both the logos for Peggle 2 and Bejeweled 2 for an indiscriminate amount of time up at the top there. And this is something that you and I have discussed a little bit last night, a little bit on the Discord a couple weeks ago or last week, is I've increasingly found it more interesting for me to explore and experience games, maybe not complete them, maybe not dig too deep into them, but games in genres that I'm not interested in. And Game Pass has been a great boon to me to have that come to fruition. So since I don't have to go out and fucking purchase Call of Duty Black Ops 4. I would have to do that. It's not on Game Pass. But I can instead play Bejeweled 2 and Peggle 2 for free, which is nice. And because I've heard of Bejeweled, I've heard of Peggle. Peggle's actually, it's not the only time Peggle's gonna come up today. A lot of people are very appreciative of those games because they were released in a time of downloadable games that are pretty simplistic but very addicting, and so people have a lot of fondness for them. But I'm not fond of either of these games. Last week I talked about Peggle, and I talked about how I didn't get that game and how everything about its aesthetic just annoyed the piss out of me, and that still stands true for Peggle 1. Because Peggle 2 is a more complete game. It's a more obviously a lot higher budget. The animations and the visual quality. I mean, it's fucking pegs, but you can tell that there is a lot more quality in the art style and stuff like that. And I've just grown soft to Peggle, but when fucking Bjork the unicorn is going and it's going da 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 da, I kind of found it fun this time. I don't know what it is, but Peggle 2, from what I played, which again I was only playing the story mode, the single player, the levels that are designed, it's about the same. I do think that there is more content that I did not explore that makes this a categorically better game in terms of how much you can interact with. And also I found it to be significantly less abrasive. So Peggle 2 for me is a 3 out of 10, while Peggle 1, it's a 6 out of 10, while Peggle 1 was a 3 out of 10. Okay. This is a doubly better game. It's twice as good as the original. Not because I like it very, very much, but because I recognize, okay, they polished it up quite a bit here.
Totally.
And also it didn't annoy me as much, which is quite important. But Bejeweled is actually less interesting because it's just a match 3 game. You swap the entire mechanic is that everything it's a board covered in jewels that fall down, sort of Tetris style, and you have to switch two to make at least three match up. That's all you can do. If you try to switch two that doesn't create a match, it won't work. So there is a puzzle element of recognizing what in this map will allow you to switch it, which is pretty simple. But then I presume I'm not very good at fucking Bejeweled, but the better you get in recognizing how things are layered on top of another, you can create cascades of combos that'll get you more points and complete the level quicker and all of that. And so what's in this game is totally serviceable from that gameplay perspective. Obviously very simple, but it looks okay. I mean, the game's not anything to fucking write home about, but there are a lot of different game modes. There's an action mode where you're fighting against the clock. There's there's an endless mode that's more, chill. And I had a good time with it from what I played. This is a very weird nitpick, but my biggest knock against this game is it just uses like essentially JPEGs for the background of like alien planets. Like the levels are supposed to be in a fucking space and like whoa, but I don't know. It's just like a 240p image of like a purple planet behind the level. And it's like, okay, I guess that's what the visual flair of this game is. But I personally don't recommend either of these games from my experience with them, but I do recommend these games. I think that enough people appreciate these games to where I would never say don't play Peggle or Bejeweled. I mean, these are obviously very highly replayable, highly addictive gameplay formats that are on mobile. They're on every fucking platform known to man. They were on Facebook games or whatever. Like, there's an appeal for these. It's just not me. And maybe I'll go back to them and dabble a little bit more, but I've kind of seen what both of them have to offer.
Yeah, these are the sort of games that replaced Endless Ocean, which is a weird connection to make, but it's true. Games like these are the progenitors of that sort of Candy Crush-esque casual rush that went to mobile.
Yeah.
And these games had a presence in these digital storefronts, but that's not really where people are playing them. And if you're going to go play Bejeweled today, I'm sure it's fucking Bejeweled Go that you can play on your phone right now, So
actually, let me see what Bejeweled games are on the App Store.
From that perspective, I totally think that playing these is an interesting lens into an era before a game like Candy Crush could become a multi-billion-dollar endeavor. So it's interesting from that through line, but I'm certainly not gonna go that way. And if I were, it would be something on mobile because that's kind of where these games are meant to live.
Yeah. So there are 3 PopCap developer developed Bejeweled games on the App Store, on the Apple App Store, which is Bejeweled Blitz, Bejeweled Classic, and Bejeweled Stars. Now I'm going to download all of these and report back next week.
Perfect. But Tucker, is it time to do the community segment?
Talk about other people? Oh, God damn it. Yes. Time for the community segment.
First of all, let's just say fucking shout out to our community, because not only are you guys awesome and I love talking to you every day, but you also really mobilized when we said we needed comments within the next couple hours, because we forgot to tell you ahead of time.
Yeah. And
we got a lot of interesting stuff, I believe.
Yes. Would you like to start, since I just rambled about fucking Bejeweled?
Sure. This one comes from our good friend and Nerdica Gods host, Daniel Navaroli, who says, I've been playing Tales of Arise. I'm about 8 hours into the game, still in tutorial territory, crying, laughing emoji. I'm really impressed by the game so far. The combat is more in-depth than I thought it would be. The characters have been interesting. The music is awesome. I can't wait to see more of the plot.
Now, the only thing I know about this game is that for whatever God for fucking sake and reason, you told me that you might be asking for this game for your birthday.
No,
Were you serious?
Let's be specific.
Yeah.
For my birthday, I asked for a Japanese copy of Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes.
Oh, this is what you asked for Christmas.
For Christmas, I asked for a copy of Tales of Rise. I'm actually quite compelled by this game. I really want to try it. I asked for it on Series X, and I am very excited to explore its world because it's an action RPG. And I have been more and more open to the idea of enjoying RPGs in a post Final Fantasy VII remake world.
Yeah.
And I think that the action RPG is my route in. And what's interesting about the Tales games is that they're a mix of RPG combat and character action combat. And I like myself a Bayonetta. I like myself a Devil May Cry. And so I think that this intersection with the beauty of Arise's world could be something that really, really hooks me. So I guess I will also report back on this front next week because I will have played some Tales of Arise. Hopefully, assuming old St. Nicholas brings me a copy.
I mean, yeah, I guess I would like to play this game eventually. I say that with the most hesitancy possible, not because there's anything wrong with this game, but because when the fuck am I going to have time for Tales of Arise? I don't know. But I've got nothing against it. I'm watching the show. It does look very good visually.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
That's really all I can say. Honestly, I don't know anything about the Tales series. Have they always been action RPGs?
I know that
like, I always assumed they were turn-based, to be honest.
I know a couple of them are dungeon crawlers. But I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know. This is my first Tales game, so
okay. Next up comes from Andrew Mugenlader has started Arise as well, but he did not write about that, I don't think.
I think we should put more hand gestures in our content. Flick of the wrist, you know. Not quite. My sister actually does a lot of this when she talks.
Yeah.
She'll say something and go that, and we make fun of her for it constantly.
Pair 3. Okay. Let's hop over to Will, who says that he finished Shin Megami Tensei 5. This is what he says. He says, I think it's one of the best games of the year, and holy shot, the combat is great. It's really interesting and cool to figure out. I did a hard mode, all skill points into luck run, which honestly was exactly the right difficulty for me. It made me really think about combat and planning shit. The character design is really good, as it always is with Shin Megami Tensei games, and generally it was a very fun way to spend 70-ish hours.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have interest in this game personally.
Mm-hmm.
Tales of Arise a little bit more my speed in terms of the RPG I want to tackle.
Yeah.
Out of 2020, let's give a shot too, but I have heard. I've heard SMT5 is quite good, but I have to say, Will, not only did you have a typo, but you said cool. So let's.
That was a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's tighten it up for next week, huh?
Yeah. All right, chop for next week. We actually might. We're on break now, and we're playing more games, and we also have more free time. So we actually
also if we don't do one next week, I'm going to be gone in California, so then it will be several weeks. So we should do it next week.
Yeah, we should do it. Okay.
So
we're back over to our two essay boys.
Yes. First one here from Reality Tim. He says, I've been playing Paper Mario on Nintendo Switch Online. This is a game I've been wanting to play for 20 years after missing it on N64 back in the day. I was super excited after playing the Origami King on Switch, which I ignored. It didn't disappoint. Paper Mario 64 had the original RPG mechanics that people complained were missing from the more recent games. I love the writing, charm, and music, all of which seem to be characteristic of the series. However, I experienced a problem with Nintendo Switch Online, where it randomly deleted 8 hours of my saved data, taking me back from 14 hours to 6 hours, despite saving at all of the save points. What the fuck? I have since discovered this problem is not uncommon, neither with N64 Online nor emulation as a whole. So anyway, Paper Mario can get fucked now, as I won't be repeating the last 8 hours of my playthrough. I'll instead learn the lesson that save states are 100% necessary when playing longer games on the NSO service. I'm happy. Then he also says, separate game. I'm happy to have moved on to Breath of the Wild, which I've not played in 4 years. To me, this is the greatest game ever made, and going back to it is like a relaxing comfort blanket. Mm-hmm. It's so immersive and takes my breath away, even after all this time. I couldn't be more excited for the sequel next year.
Yeah, so both of these I think are interesting to talk about. Paper Mario as a Nintendo turn-based RPG. I've always been interested in the franchise. I've never experienced. That's actually not true. I've played 30 minutes of Super Paper Mario on Wii like 6 years ago. I don't remember.
That's all you need.
That's what they say. But it sucks to hear that there's that big of an issue with the saving of the game.
Yeah.
Like that's categorically terrible. Like losing 20 minutes of progress sucks, but whatever. 6 hours, that's unreasonable. Like this is the reason that I have not gone back to Psychonauts 1 is because I do not have my save anymore, and I do not want to replay the opening 7 hours of that game. Like that's a lot of time in the game.
There's very few games that I do that for.
Yeah, especially in a world where I have been increasingly engaged by completing a game and moving on to something else. Losing that amount of progress would be, I would not give a piss anymore. But it also kind of retrospectively realizing that I think that's the reason I'm not really interested in SMT or Tales of Arise is 50 to 60 hours is a lot of time. And I don't know if I have the particular bandwidth for that kind of game if I'm not jonesing for it. Like I'll spend 30 hours in a Pokemon game because Pokemon is a fucking part of my DNA, or I'm excited to spend that much time in Breath of the Wild 2 or the next Fire Emblem game. But if I'm not, holy shit, I need to play Tales of Arise. I'm a Tales fan. 70 hours or for SMT, I just don't have that type of time on my plate, considering there's so much fucking stuff I want to play. Yeah.
Paper Mario, though, much more bite-sized. I think Paper Mario is like a 15, 20-hour game.
Okay.
It's one I really want to play. I have played a little bit of every Paper Mario game. I don't think I've ever finished one. This is the one that I find most compelling. For me, Thousand Year Door gets too weird. I think it gets too weird, but I would but that's also a game I've only played like the first chapter or so because it's fucking impossible to get your hands on. If I ever have access
how'd you play it?
A younger man makes decisions that an older man wouldn't agree with, Tucker.
Uh-oh. We all know what that means.
We all know what that means. But if I was able to ever get legitimate access to this game, I would like to give it a proper go. But Paper Mario, of all of the series entries right now, is the one I'm most compelled by. And the fact that it's on Switch now, I'll just be careful about saving and give it a shot. As for Breath of the Wild, I don't think it's the best game ever made, but I think it's certainly up there. So
so the reason I said I was interested in discussing both these is the one thing he said about Breath of the Wild, and something we kind of talked about a little bit in our You Hate Breath of the Wild discussion from a couple weeks ago.
That's my perspective.
I think that's what it was called.
Yes.
Is that it might be difficult to recapture the energy of Breath of the Wild 1 because that was such a moment in time. However, it has been 4 years since most of us have played that game. And seeing him be so excited and reinvigorated about playing that game so many years later, I think there could be a chance that, for me, that the energy of Breath of the Wild is recaptured through a recontextualization, a sequel, extra mechanics, whatever. But even if it is trying to recapture that same energy, it might hit again because it has been so long.
No, there's certainly that possibility, which is part of the reason why I've never replayed Breath of the Wild. I'm like, I also didn't really. I thought the Champions Ballad DLC was not very good, frankly.
Yeah, I didn't play much of it.
But at this point, I'm certainly not touching Breath of the Wild until the sequel comes out, so I can attempt to emulate that fresh experience. Because I haven't consistently played Breath of the Wild since 2018. So it's certainly been a number of years. So we'll see come 2022, assuming the game actually releases next year, which we'll see.
All right, it's time for me to crack open a book, a novel, if you will.
Novel.
Some may call it the Lord of the Rings of BLB submissions, which of course comes from Andrew Orozco, Mooglenator,
co-host of My Sour Show.
Who says, I managed to pick up a used, and I want to emphasize used copy of Call of Duty Vanguard, which is a game that came out less than a month ago, for about $35. I had too much on my plate when it first released, and it just didn't tickle my fancy enough, but a half off, I decided to bite. Vanguard's campaign follows an elite team made up of various ally nations, US, England, Australia, and Soviet Union, as they sneak into Berlin to eliminate Hitler's successor in the final weeks of the European theater of war. The bulk of the campaign is made up of flashback missions that explain why each member of the squad was picked for the secret operation. Through their eyes, we get to see all the big battles of World War II, the Battle of Midway, the Siege of Stalingrad, the African campaign against Rommel, etc., which as a history buff, I greatly appreciated. The overall campaign is pretty short, but I praised the thoroughness of the events and the variety in locations. Lastly, the game is gorgeous, and when played on a 4K TV paired with my PS5, what the fuck? That's the last thing. The character
It
model.
was beautiful. We'll just fill it in. We'll fill in the clause for him.
The character models are outstanding and approach uncanny valley territory, which I don't know if I would consider that a good thing. Environmental textures are detailed and photorealistic. A lot of the budget was clearly spent on the game's visual fidelity. Now, the online, on the other hand, not so great. The game's multiplayer, which is the real reason people play Call of Duty, is pretty lackluster. It plays like a direct copy and paste of the last game, Cold War. I understand it is the 18th entry in the overall mainline Call of Duty series, but it is as stale as a bag of chips left out in the sun. The maps are poorly designed and are just like a maze of corridors. The spawning feels random and nonsensical, and the downtime between matches is horrendously long, as games like to highlight everyone's contributions with participation trophies. That's nothing new, but you used to be able to skip all that crap before, not anymore. Overall, let's just say that even at half off, I'm not sure I actually got a deal. Don't let this turn you off the franchise ever. However, there are good COD games.
I want to play Vanguard. I want to play the campaign.
So do I guess.
I don't give a fuck about Call of Duty's multiplayer. I've never found COD's multiplayer to be fun. I think it's hide and seek tag.
Sure.
And this is not a new critique at all. But it's did you see me before I saw you? Then I'm dead. Did I see you before you saw me? You're dead. I just think that the time to kill in Call of Duty is so ridiculously short that it's just not fun to me. The campaigns, on the other hand, are some of the most high fidelity traditional blockbuster content in the entire industry. The feel of the guns, the fidelity of the visuals, the composition of them, the set piece and everything, it's quite great. I think Modern Warfare 2019 is excellent. I think Cold War is pretty good. I have a harder time connecting to the pre-modern rebooted Call of Duties in effect.
When was the reboot?
2019 was Modern Warfare.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant that it was like an Assassin's Creed Origin style reboot for the franchise at some point.
No,
because there's been a game every year since 2003 or whatever.
Yeah, but there's kind of a demarcation at 2019 Modern Warfare. But I want to play Vanguard. Now it's in a very interesting position because a lot of people say you shouldn't buy an Activision game.
Oh, true.
In light of Activision scandals. First of all, fuck Activision. I'm not Jeff Keighley. I've got no investment.
BLB does not have Activision up its ass.
No.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
I take that back.
However, I want to support Sledgehammer. People made this game. Mm-hmm. Bobby Kotick did not make this game.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't feel any kind of way about supporting this game. I'm not supporting Activision.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that I was certainly thinking about. And that was a lot more prominent in the conversation back when the game was new.
Yeah.
But
the game is still new. It did not come out very long ago.
No, it didn't. But Call of Duty is also in a weird place where but it's just go back to Warzone or whatever. Yeah. Like these games have a short shelf life. Even if they're played for a long time, their cultural moment is pretty small. But I don't know. It's a game I really do want to play. I think that there's an artistry to the creation of these blockbuster campaigns that goes largely underappreciated because Call of Duty is the fucking juggernaut that it is.
Yes, of course.
And so I perhaps if I find myself an equally cheap secondhand copy or a nice deep digital sale, I'll pick it up because I genuinely do want to experience that campaign because the last two I think were quite excellent and they always feel great to play.
So I believe, and I don't know how this affects you, I believe the game is on a deep sale on both Xbox and PlayStation at the moment. I don't know if that's $35, but it could be 38 or 40.
I'll investigate such a lead you've placed in front of me.
Okay. Yeah. So this is interesting. And I kind of talked to Andrew about this a couple of days ago, and I think you might have been there as well. I don't know. I forget.
Yes, and I was telling you to play Modern Warfare in 2019.
Oh, yeah. Is that this is the biggest element of I have no experience with this. Yeah. I don't particularly care, but I feel like I should try it to expand my horizons and be able to understand conversation. Call of fucking Duty, one of the magnum, I wouldn't say magnum opuses, but one of the magnum dong franchises.
It is the magnum dong franchise
of the games industry. It's fucking Call of Duty. It's Call of Duty. But I've never played one in my life. The only this is fucking funny. The only exception to that is a Call of Duty Zombies game on mobile, which I actually played a somewhat reasonably large amount of with my friends in middle school.
Sure.
But I never owned a PlayStation or Xbox at the time where my friends were playing Call of Duty, if they were at all. And because of that just never entered my wheelhouse. But I think that what you say about the appreciation, the underappreciation of those campaigns is actually something I'm interested in sort of kindling within myself. And ladies and gentlemen, announcing it here, 2022 is the year of Call of Duty for Tucker Hazel. Yeah, okay, yeah, I gotta play Elden Ring, yeah, I gotta play Legends Arceus and Splatoon 3 and Breath of the Wild 2 and God of War and Horizon. But I'm gonna play some Call of Duty campaigns next year. And we'll come out the other side. Yes, that's the one you sold me, right?
Yes.
Okay, then I said yes. That's actually
yes.
How many Call of Duty games do I own? I think I own 2 because I bought Ghosts on PS3, but it was like $3 at a fucking store. So I'm like, but I'm gonna play Call of Duty campaigns next year.
I think they're good.
I'm gonna fucking do it. And if you buy Vanguard, or if you want a half season on Vanguard or something like that, I'll play the campaign with you. And honestly, if you want to do like a campaign review of Call of Duty Vanguard, that could be kind of fun.
I actually really like the idea of a Vanguard campaign review. And if we went half seas on the game that's half seas off, that would be like 10 or 15 bucks for us each.
Yes. Up. Digital Shake. Fucking
spit Digital pack. Shape.
Well, conceptual spit packs.
Conceptual. Aperture.
Yeah. All right. Now that essay is over, and now that I've divulged my plans for Call of Duty, let's finish off with our last few comments.
There's not. We'll get to it. Pantry, our good friend Franz says, okay, so I haven't been playing a bunch of games lately while moving. Good luck with the move, by the way, buddy. But I did set the gunk, and I'm just playing Yakuza 0. I have not formulated an opinion on these yet. Sad, I know. But they both run super clean on Series S. That's all the time I've got. I've got to get back to playing Picross 2 on my Game Boy.
That's the most
Franz
thing I've ever heard, and I fucking appreciate it.
Thank you, Franz.
Okay, next down comes from Sam, who's
no. Oh,
no, that's not true. I ignored it because it was only 1 sentence long. Nisk says that Bloons Tower Defense 6 is a funny monkey game.
So what's funny about this actually is one of my best friends in high school. Every day, senior year, because if senior year doesn't matter. If you're a younger individual watching this video, when you get to senior year, no one gives a shit about you. So you can do whatever you want in class. He would play Bloons Tower Defense 5 all class in every one of our classes. We sit together for basically all of them. So
Would that not get tiring?
I observed a lot of Bloons Tower Defense 5.
Now, you know what? This is probably the only opportunity we're ever going to have to talk about Bloons Tower Defense on our fucking YouTube content. What's your experience with the Bloons series?
I haven't played it.
You've never played a Bloons game?
No.
Okay, BTD 4 and 5, I believe, were fucking huge at my schools, because I believe 1 or 2 of the older ones, maybe 2 or 3, was on Cool Math Games, which was a huge thing. In computer labs when the teacher wasn't looking.
Yes, it was
in elementary school for me. So I played a good amount of those. But the app versions of 4 and 5, I believe it is, if I'm remembering, were very big on school iPads at my school. My brother was he loved Bloons Tower Defense 5, I believe. And I like those games quite a bit. I haven't thought about BTD in a very long time, but there's, I mean, I don't have a huge amount to say about Bloons Tower Defense, but I've played a lot of Bloons in my life. And they're very good games. I don't know what's different in 6. Frankly, I couldn't tell you what's different between fucking 4 and 5 or any of them, except for they do progressively look better. If you look at the fucking original Bloons, it's like these crusty like PNGs of characters, and it's really weird. But yeah, good for you, Nisk. Good for you playing fucking Bloons Tower Defense 6. I believe there was a conversation about Bloons in our Discord server that
there was. Yeah, there's actually nothing else here. Sam just says that he wants to play Peggle.
Oh, I thought he played Peggle.
That's all he's saying, is that he wants to play Peggle.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll. I only read the word.
He's played it in the past.
Whenever I see a message, my eyes just go Peggle, and so I only read Peggle. But I guess maybe next week we'll have. He
said I had a weird desire to play Peggle for the past few weeks, so I bought Peggle Deluxe and Peggle Nights in a bundle to celebrate. I don't know, to celebrate finishing the semester and beat the adventure modes for both over the weekend.
Wait, hold on. He did play them.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm going to take it from the top. I had a weird desire to play Peggle for the past few weeks. So I bought Peggle Deluxe and Peggle Nights in a bundle to celebrate finishing the semester and beat the adventure modes for both over the weekend. Will I ever touch the game again? Probably not, but it was only like $7 for a few hours of entertainment, and I'd say it was worth it. And I got the pegging out of my system.
Now, I would be interested, and I think I'll make this sort of a prompt for next week.
Yeah.
Is people who have played Peggle try to sell us on Peggle, because from what I've played of these games, the 2 or so hours that I've played them combined, I personally don't see a lot of entertainment value out of them. But he beat 2 Peggle campaigns over the course of a weekend. Presumably that's at least 10 hours worth of gameplay, or I don't know how fucking long they are, but that's a lot. And so clearly there's an enjoyment factor that I'm not connecting with. And I would like to know from people who enjoy Peggle, why?
Why?
I don't know, man.
But Tucker, we finished the episode. This is probably the longest one ever. 90 minutes.
Fucking I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the year of our Lord 2022, 4-hour BLB episodes coming out weekly. We're not talking about It Takes Two because we haven't played that much of it. And we will be streaming it over the course of the next few days. So
yes,
by the time you see this video, our opinions on it would have already been outdated.
Yeah.
But we'll probably talk about it next week.
Oh,
If we don't do a review about it, I might want to do an individual review of the game.
No, we definitely will do a review of the game.
Since this will be one of the first times this year that, well, no, that's a joke, but where we both actually finished the game that we're saying we're going to finish. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. This was quite a chaotic, but I think therapeutically chaotic episode of Backlog Banter.
Sure.
And for real, we will see you next week.
We will.
I was born to record BLB today.
That's a great point.
My entire life, every decision I've ever made is leading up to this point.
That is true. What do you want to do with that information?
Write a book.
That would be a very interesting book. And then at 3:49 Eastern Standard Time on December 23rd, 2021, we recorded episode 17 of season 2 of BLB?
Unclear.